We will get started here.
Awesome. So
Right.
I guess just for hearings, essentially as a select board, you'll open the hearing. Not many folks from the public, but
Please.
essentially it's for getting feedback from the public. I know Cheryl sent me a lot of questions earlier. I don't know if there are additional questions.
I think
Um,
they're kind of comprehensive, probably, of I think what the select board has asked and what townspeople have brought up to her. Yeah. No.
okay. Yeah, I guess as a select board, just open the hearing, and
Okay.
yeah, we can wait a few minutes for folks to come in.
Well, I think I'm good to get it started.
I'm ready. I mean,
So yeah, we're at.
there's 5 minutes.
Yeah, and then if folks show up, then they've got time to talk. If not, after 5 or 10 minutes, we can close the hearing. But I'm happy to also. I'll mainly be answering technical questions if that's the case. But
Okay.
yeah.
With that, I'll open the hearing. Today, this is a special select board hearing. With us today is Kyle Katz from Two Rivers Otoquechee Regional Commission. And we're here to discuss the draft, as they are right here for people to take. The draft flood hazard area regulations and the updates to this plan that have been introduced for review.
You want to copy of that?
We did, but make it one.
I
Getting some copies of that.
Okay.
So we've had a couple of copies over time, and
yeah, we'll copies. No problems.
that you left at home.
Yeah.
Well, we did hold a special separate select board meeting to specifically go through the changes on this, so we had time to look at it. And then make a decision on how we were going to move forward. And I believe that from the select board's perspective, we didn't have any specific opposition to any of the changes that we saw. Everything seemed to make sense. You know that you had joined us, Kyle, a couple of months ago at our, I think it was the April meeting, maybe March. I can't remember, March or April, and initially brought us the updates and kind of went, section by section on the changes and the why behind the changes. And I think in a nutshell, we had discussed that, understanding there were a lot of questions related to the map and how the map would be changing. And our understanding is that at this time, there is no change to the current floodplain map, and that will be coming in about how much time would you expect, Kyle, from FEMA?
Yeah, a year or two. We might have preliminary maps sooner than that. FEMA's published small corners of the state, like a small section in southern Vermont has a preliminary map. But I know that they're working on the rest of the state. And the Department of Environmental Conservation will periodically send out or put updates on their website as to when they estimate different counties will go online with a working draft map.
Okay.
We kind of started the big push with flood regulations back in, is it the end of 2022 maybe? So that just gives a sense of time frame where we've been waiting on these maps at least since then, if not before. And now we're at mid 2025. So I say a year or two as like a ballpark estimate.
Okay. Okay, good.
And yeah, but once those maps are available, FEMA does have platform where you can actually compare what the current map is and the new map. Generally, what we're seeing is um, much more detail because we have finer grain mapping data. We have 1 foot contours that can allow for a much more detail than what was being used back in the 70s and the 80s when these maps were being drawn up. So, there might be new areas that get folded in. Some areas might be no longer in the flood zone. So you're just seeing a lot of movement of those lines, but generally following that same, where obviously where the flooding has been is, where where it will continue to be. It's mainly on the edges that you're seeing some movement. Um, and yeah, I don't know how far up into smaller streams the new maps will go. Um,
Well, was when we had an event like Irene, the smaller streams were part of the flood, but I mean, you can't really map what that's gonna do when you get a flood like that.
Yeah.
When we had
well,
on
yeah,
Port,
especially too, I think with that it would be more because a lot of the smaller streams, they're coming down hills or mountainsides, and so those aren't areas where you have a lot of floodplain necessarily. So that would be, I think, more the potential issues with erosion or the stream jumping its banks, which we saw in Plymouth in the July 2023 event. It essentially, the stream created a new channel, and it went down the mountain behind someone's house, and it turned into a buyout as a result. Um, but yeah, I think you would see if you have flood maps in these narrower stream areas, the map itself would be much narrower because there's just not a lot of space for that water to flow out to. Yeah, I think we can probably wait another minute or two. I don't know. It seems like this might be it for the hearing.
Yeah, I think this is it for the hearing. If we don't see anybody else here by now, nobody's joined via phone or online,
Mhm.
so um we I haven't had anybody specifically reach out to me with question or concern. Have you,
Okay,
Cheryl,
good.
anybody?
Other than what I asked earlier.
Yeah.
No.
And those were interesting questions, Cheryl, just in terms of because in a way the flood regulations are a requirement for eligibility for flood insurance. But the
Right.
regulations themselves don't really change the barometer for how the insurance premiums are calculated. It's more like, oh, you have flood regulations. That's one of those requirements to be eligible. And
Yeah.
then it's more about when you find an insurance provider, they come provide you with a quote based on your base flood elevation and other factors. So it's more about the location of the structure, how high it is in relation to the flood. If a property owner can show that they have a certificate showing that their house is elevated a certain level above the flood, that can help with the flood insurance premiums. But it's
I
more
think
just
too, there's a lot of mortgage holders that will also require to purchase it as a condition of the mortgage if you are in the floodplain, right? So
Mhm.
it's a
Yeah, and
determination so that it's more difficult to finance like a new house or a new build if it's in the floodplain. Why would you want to build?
it wouldn't be a new house or a new build because the the current bylaw and this draft don't allow new residential in the mapped floodplain. So this isn't changing that in any way. It's more if a house in the floodplain is getting substantially improved or was substantially damaged, say from a flood, then a requirement would be it would have to, if it's getting built back, you lift it up so it's 2 feet above that base flood. So if it were to flood to that extent again, hopefully it wouldn't be damaged.
I think that question comes up a lot because we do see that, like, we've seen some houses that would be kind of like a, you know, like there's one in Moortown that is in the floodplain and they have jacked that house way up in the air.
Like a complete.
Whole floor, they've added it, and so, but nobody else in there around there has done that. So they've all done, you know, remediation from the flooding. And this one house has gone the extra mile to elevate themselves, probably to avoid or to bypass having to pay for extra flood insurance or whatever, or maybe get a discount on it for some reason. But then you also have like the issue of like Randall Street in Waterbury, like that is going to continue. That's just going to keep flooding because it is in the floodplain, but it's a historic village. They're going to keep rebuilding. And so as a condition of anybody who buys one of those homes, I know, or at least I've heard from the buyers that they are required to like pay a lot for, because it's just a given. It's not an if, it's a when, because every time the Winooski rises
Well, they
there.
even sell them in flood insurance anymore.
They do, they have it, but a lot of those people who were still in there that was through Irene are still paying, they're still paying off loans from Irene, you know. They're still,
And
you
it
know.
could be that a lot of those structures didn't trigger the substantial damage threshold. So that's hopefully I don't bungle it here, but it's if the damage following a flood event exceeds 50% of the value of the property pre-flood,
Yeah.
then because you're looking at, okay, if it's cost more than 50% of that value to put everything back together, at this point you should just lift it up so it's safer and you're less likely to have that damage recur down the road. Some bylaws, and I think this one has it already, the current flood regulations, there's the definition for substantial improvement includes like within a 3-year period. So it's saying you can't have damage that's not quite 50%, and then next year have damage that's not quite. They get added together, so it tends
So if you have
to cumulative.
pre-flood that exceed the value of your property, then
Yeah, or if someone's looking to do additions and not trigger the substantial improvement threshold. So you have a house that's below the base flood, and you do maybe a small room addition 1 year, and then the next year you do another room addition, and then the next year you do a third, and it's adding up over time. But if they're counted individually, they're not triggering that substantial improvement. And so it's trying to eliminate that workaround, because the idea is to, if a structure doesn't meet the minimum standards, eventually it does. So it's trying to bring things into compliance over time.
okay, that makes sense. I didn't have any other questions related to any of the updates. I think those are just the things that were on my mind about the potential questions we could get, right? But I think we were all supportive of moving forward with the draft previously. And since we didn't warn a special session of the for vote, we are going to meet tomorrow for a few minutes to look at furthering adoption. You know, as long as we don't have anybody questioning or pushing back. And at this point in time, we don't have anybody here to
Hmm.
express concerns.
I
And
don't know. And there's a few people that have houses in the floodplain right here. And I don't know why they're not expressing concerns over it. They probably would be asking for help.
Yeah.
What to do. That's not really what this is about. Not really helping them. They're just making the regulations to keep them from doing anything worse.
Yes, right,
Right?
right. If they make major
Mhm.
improvements or if they continue to build on their property, I mean, that's the line out there that says don't do it because, you know, or if you do, then
Right.
and it still, I think a big thing is it still allows for small accessory structures. So you can do like garages, things that's still allowed. Those are not part of I mean, they're kind of outside of the National Flood Insurance Program. They're not really calculated. It's mainly those principal residential commercial structures that are looked at for meeting the minimum regulations in terms of elevation. So a small accessory structure wouldn't necessarily need to be elevated. It would need to have, flood vents and things of that nature. That's with any development in a floodplain, it needs to be able to allow for the passage of water and to not get washed away. So it would need to be built to a certain standard, just to prevent that, damage, or if it washes downstream, damages a bridge or infrastructure downstream. That's something that everyone wants to avoid.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I think at this point in time, we're at 20 minutes past 6. We don't have anybody else in attendance. I think from my perspective, if we here don't have any further questions, I think we're good to adjourn. Kyle, do you have anything else for us at this time?
No, just
What you can-
following adoption, the bylaw goes into effect 21 days after.
Okay.
So yeah, I can help clean it up, get rid of all the highlighting and everything.
Okay.
So it'll be good to go if yeah.
And then get that posted on the website and on file here. All right, sounds great. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right,
Mm.
we are now adjourned at 6:20 p.m. Thank you so much for your help, Kyle.
Yep. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.